Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the immediate Borough Council Legislative Session of March 2018. Please join me standing and to say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have quite an audience tonight. They're not here to see us. They are here because, as is usual, come spring, we have awards that are given on behalf of certain members of the police department. And tonight is an extra special night because we have a couple of swearing-in ceremonies. As is usual, we turn over the conduct of the proceedings to the Chief of Police, Martin Wucinich, as well as to the Borough Mayor, Robert McMahon. Mr. McMahon, if you'd like to stand and join the Chief at the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Real quick, I'm going to do a real quick roll call, if you don't mind, before we do some swearing. Officer from the Media Police Department, Officer Eric Gavin, Officer Richie Light, Lieutenant Rick Johnson, Officer Nikki Young. You'll meet these two other newer officers a little bit for their ceremonial swearing in. Yes, ladies, you too. Officer Mitch Hellendauer, Mike Dolan, Danny DeVito, Sergeant Steve Longbottom, Officer John McCormick, and Sergeant Skippy Bob Carroll. From other agencies in attendance, we have, oh, there's Brownie. Brownie, stand up. Sergeant Brown, I'm sorry. From the Upper Province Police Department, we have Patrolman Hable. Raise your hand, please. Mason, Roman, Corporal Gary Essef. Also, we have Officer Bob Scott from the Upper Darby Police Department. Bob's Bo is one of our newly to be ceremonially sworn in part-time officers. Boo or Bo? What did you call him? Bo? Boo? Boo. All right, Boo. Welcome. And a familiar face in and around town from Newtown Square PD, Officer Jonathan Joseph. Did I miss anyone? And someone you'll be reading about a lot. This is Richie Light's son. Stand up, son. Played freshman basketball this year at my alma mater, Cardinal O'Hara High School. He's not as good as either one of his sisters yet, but we're getting there. Sergeant Matt Egan just walked in. Sarge. And who else is out there? Anybody? Without further ado, I would, at this given time, ask I'd ask Officer Kirsten Cole to come forward, and whoever you have going to hold the Bible, and your parents are here, I believe. So that we do have, you're going to be on late night television. So we would, if you could move in here. Mom, you're going to hold it. Dad, hold the Bible. If you'll face the camera, I already got instructions from them.
We rehearsed this. Repeat after me. I,
Kirsten Cole,
do upon solemn oath,
do upon solemn oath,
according to law, declare and say
that
I will support
I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the Commonwealth of
of
Pennsylvania,
the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform the duties
perform the duties
of a police officer
of police officer
for the Borough Media
of the Borough Media
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Yes, we are. Kirsten, if you would introduce your family to the audience, we'd appreciate that. And say a few words to the Borough Council and other guests.
Keep it clean.
I have a lot of family members here tonight. My mom, my dad, my brother, Aunt Beth Ann, Grandma Sherry, Aunt Wendy, Aunt Karen. Who else is here from me? Jackie, my cousin. My girlfriend Kate somewhere in the back. But I just Uncle John
And Aaron.
and Aaron. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to work for this department. I enjoy myself every chance I get to work here, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next I call Officer Jenna Long. Jenna? Boo? And do your parents want to come up? I'm told that your dad's not a people person. Come on up.
Do upon solemn oath,
Do upon solemn oath,
according to law,
according to law,
declare and say
declare and say
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform the duties
perform the duties
of police officer
of police officer
for the Borough of Median
for the Borough of Median
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Boo.
Just name real quick. You know.
Monica, Aaron, his sisters, my dad, my mom, my sister Danielle, my sister Sam, my best friend Tina. And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right, at this point in time, I'd like to, we have two letter of accommodations to give out. I'd call upon Sergeant Steve Longbottom from our police department who nominated these two individuals. Dad, he's not a people person either.
I was practicing this. It's supposed to start Danny is commended. I kept saying Danny should be committed. So I slipped up. Dan, you are to be commended for exemplary service given during a routine traffic stop on the evening of November 13th, 2017, and the events that followed. Your diligence took a routine vehicle stop for driving without headlights to a search warrant and arrest of a man trafficking illicit drugs between Colorado and Pennsylvania. With the assistance of your fellow officers, you confiscated over $8,200 in cash, likely the proceeds of drug deals, and a large stash of marijuana roughly valued at over $30,000. You deserve recognition for exceptional service, professionalism, and dedication to the citizens of Media.
Yes, sir.
My parents aren't here tonight. I haven't paid my rent in a couple of weeks. So. My girlfriend came out for this tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you, members of council. Thank you, Sergeant Longbottom, Chief Wasinick, Lieutenant Johnson, and all my co-workers. I appreciate this. It means a lot. Thank you.
Officer Gavin.
Eric, you're to be commended for exemplary service given during the following investigation of a suspicious vehicle on February 21st, 2018, and the events that followed. Your diligence in pursuing this incident, along with the assistance of fellow officers, led to the arrest of a serial criminal responsible not only for committing burglary in Media, but in multiple towns throughout Philadelphia, Delaware, Chester, Montgomery counties. You're to be commended for actions taken, the ensuing investigation, arrest, recovery of the property, and above all, your dedication to the citizens of Greenwood.
Right.
That was probably 5 paragraphs long before the chief got a hold of it, if Steve wrote it. A blindfold squirrel finds a nut occasionally, so that's basically, if you're out there and you're driving around, occasionally you run into something, and luckily in this instance it was, and I had great officers with me that helped me develop this, so it's certainly not something I did by myself. All my partners, Richie, Danny, Mitch, the rest of them. I mean, Richie did a lot of the work on this. Sergeant Longbottom was involved. So this is a group effort. I just, got the ball rolling. So, but thank you very much. Oh, and the upper officers that gave us the initial information that brought this vehicle to my attention in the first place was Officer Nagel from Upper Providence. So if not for him having that information, that little nugget of information, I would have probably never stopped this vehicle in the first place. So, thank you.
What's funny here is Eric just disconnected the microphone, but what the burglars were doing, we're going to homes that were recently renovated, cutting off the key lock boxes that realtors use, breaking into them, keying, going in, stealing ovens and microwaves and reselling them. He just disconnected that. They were just cutting gas lines and everything else, so he can also help our victim replace his gas line to the stove. Ladies and gentlemen, I turn the microphone over to a good friend of ours, Mr. Bob Valenti from the Nativity BVM Knights of Columbus.
Thank you. This award was named for one of our members who started this award, Tom Flynn. He was a great guy, and I'm honored to be able to take his place. He was, as I said, he was a great guy. This is to the Supervisor of the Year Award for Immediate Police, Eric Gavin, presented by myself for the Knights of Columbus, and you certainly deserve it.
Thank you very much. You're only as good as the guys that you work with. Again, it's a broken record, but I work with Danny, Mitchell, Dolan occasionally, Kirsten, these other folks. So being a supervisor of good people is an easy job. All you have to do is give them a little direction, and they make you look good. So that's the only reason I got this, is because I work with dynamic officers. So the fact that I'm a patrolman is just an honor that the rest of the PD thought that highly of me this time around, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Everything I know from Chief was said.
This will be the Tom Flynn Memorial Officer of the Year Award, and we call upon Richard Light.
Yes. Richard, this is an honor for me to give this to you. It's an award from your peers. You were picked from them, and I certainly believe in what they have to say. They're one of the finest police forces in the area, as well as our neighboring areas. I wouldn't want to leave them out. Congratulations.
Bob, thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to thank the Flynn family and the Knights of Columbus for this award. I want to thank my fellow officers for selecting me this year. As we all know, anyone could be up here. Any one of us. I believe every one of these officers is top-notch. All right. Our department starts at the top. Everything we do is because of our chief and his great leadership. Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Mayor Bob McMahon, I want to thank you for always supporting the department, always coming around and sitting down and talking with us about any issues, and hopefully we always resolve them.
You actually like that?
I do. The council, from the negotiations, you're tough. I know you're tough. The residents of Media Borough are well served. Good job.
Thank you.
I want to introduce my family. My wife Rosemary. Three lovely children, Alex, Lauren, and Matt. We have
Pat, who came down from Harleysville with her daughter Jack. My brother-in-law Mike, his wife Joanne. My brother-in-law Keith, his wife Amy. Rainey back there with all those kids back there. These kids over here. All right, I want to thank everybody. I really appreciate it.
That's in closing. I'd just like to introduce my father, Mayor Bob McMahon. Sorry. I promised I would be good tonight. So
Don't use this funny.
with that,
Is that funny?
I would just like to thank the council for affording us this opportunity to come before the public at your public meeting. Thank you all. God bless you. St. Patrick's Day, Saturday, everybody do things responsibly. I left a box of cookies there for the mayor to share with you. They're little shamrocks, homemade by myself. So, thank you all. And you want to take a little recess, Brian, or you want us to go into the parking lot? Or?
Well, the mayor does have some rebuttal time if you wish to address any of the comments that the chief has made. Your son.
I don't know. Come on.
What a great son he's been.
Folks, we're going to vacate this room so you can start your public meeting.
But right to the left of that is...
Now we'll proceed into our regular agenda. And the first item is the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes. And so as housekeeping matter, we have to approve them or at least vote on approval of them. The first items are workshop meeting minutes for this past month, February. Do I have a motion to approve those meeting minutes as submitted?
Second.
And there is a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the February 1, 2018 workshop meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes. And of course, 2 weeks after that, February 15, we had a regularly scheduled council meeting, and we have meeting minutes that memorialize the events of that meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the February 15, 2018 council meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes. All right, so now's the time when we invite the public to come forward and address us on a matter of their interest or something that is on the agenda. If there's anybody here at this time, please come forward. Come to the
David
mic.
Miller, Oak Crest Lane, Upper Providence. Over the past several weeks, we've had some horrendous weather, power outages, trees down, and what have you, in and around Media and Upper Providence and other communities nearby. As a volunteer firefighter, we spent an inordinate amount of time chasing wires down and what have you, and there was always issues with getting through when trees were blocking roadways and what have you. Where I'm going with this is obviously the 3rd Street Bridge is being processed to become a bridge, and my question to anybody that would like to offer some idea as to when that bridge might be replaced, so it would eliminate things like what happened on Orange Street, which eliminated made a very touchy situation getting to and from Upper Providence and the borough.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. So the latest information that we have is that the design for the dam will be complete by the end of this year. And then the estimate is that it will be about anywhere from a year to a year and a half from that point for the construction to be completed. So we're looking at somewhere around 2020, I'd say, 2019 or 2020. I can only give you an estimate because, as you probably know, at this point, Media Borough is not guiding this project at all. It is being done through PennDOT. So PennDOT is the one that sets the pace for the design as well as for the construction. We have given our engineers the instruction to work as closely with PennDOT as need be, so that PennDOT can complete that process as quickly as possible. So we, as you, are waiting for PennDOT to work through the design process, and then after the design process, they will then initiate the construction process.
I understand that, and that's very clear, but I'm curious as to the design. I thought the designs were in place because we had a meeting a year or so ago that very specifically went into the process that they have done up to now, and I thought that the bridge design would fall right into place with that.
No, the design was never completed, and as you probably know from walking down to the park, because you are very familiar with the area,
Yeah.
there has been a partial breach of the dam. And because of that partial breach, that took an entirely separate process in order to accomplish that. So while that breach process while the breach process was being worked through, the design process on the dam took a back seat to that. So now that that breach process has been finalized, now our engineer is working with PennDOT, our dam engineer, not Mr. Mattson, working with PennDOT in order to complete the design on the dam.
So there will be a dam and a bridge, or just a bridge?
So the two are exclusive. You can't have a bridge as well as a dam. There'll be a dam with a road across it.
Okay.
There never has been a bridge there. It's always been a dam.
I know, I realize that.
Yeah.
I was just curious with the breach, whether that was going to remain in place or whether it was going to be rebuilt as a dam.
Well, we have instructed our engineer to work with PennDOT on a design for a dam.
Okay. All right.
All right?
I appreciate that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I might hang around for a little bit longer.
That's all right. Thanks for coming out.
Yep.
Normally I would ask if there's anybody else who wishes to address council at this time, but there does not appear to be anybody else here to address council at this time. Adam, unless you wish to, you take a pass. Okay, then we'll move along to our engineer's report. Mr. Mattson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick note of thanks. In early March, we had the nor'easter storm, knocked out power to most of the media. The police, the fire department were really great, but I really want to emphasize how thankful I am to the crews at PICO, worked very quickly and efficiently. These are very dangerous conditions with live wires, high voltage, very sort of scary for our residents and even for the PICO crews. So with their talent and their training and the personnel, they were able to restore power quickly. Also, our public works crew was diligent in making sure we got out our emergency generators for our traffic signals. So the traffic signals along Borough Pike, some of them went down, and some time back we bought emergency generators. The backup batteries only give about 6 hours, and then we have to get the generators. So it was great working with PICO. The communication was very strong, and then working with our public works crew. So big thanks to everybody. It was a scary storm, and everybody was affected by it. Next week, I anticipate we'll be having the bidding for the road program for the road resurfacing. So we'll look to have bids opened at the next council meeting. We did receive a letter from DEP for our PRP plan. So that was our pollutant reduction plan for the MS4. It was very technical. So there's a bunch of things to look for technically. I had a chance to read through it. I didn't see anything that wasn't going to be instrumental as far as the response, so we'll get a response. And then lastly, we did receive an inquiry from Aqua. As you may recall, Aqua went through its process of revising its 537 plan, and they had to submit land development plans to Upper Providence, where the wastewater treatment plant sits. Media is the property owner, so they're going to look for it's just some administrative signatures from the borough. move that process forward. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. I understand that the mayor might have a question for you. Before he asks that question, I'm going to ask Councilman Robinson if he wishes to chime in, because I know that Councilman Robinson was out with Ralph LaRosa during some of those storms, and I'd like to know whether you'd like to share your thoughts about that.
And I wouldn't, and I was going to joke that Kevin took a lot of my thunder away, but that's fine. I was out a fair amount with Ralph and the highway crew, and I don't have anything on my agenda tonight, so I'll just go through mine right now. I just really wanted to thank, first off, our police department, our fire department, but our highway crew was relentless. This was storm after storm in which they encountered. They were out there. No one was complaining. I was actually out with Ralph a couple of times where he was actually having to tell people to go home because they just wanted to keep going to get things done. I also wanted to make sure I want to thank our staff. We have a tremendous amount of people calling with questions and things of that nature. So our office staff, as always, Mr. Smith has been fantastic. But it was everyone that really worked together. And people that don't get thanks enough is, I want to say, our residents. What I really noticed was that within hours, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of our sidewalks were taken care of. And I think that's something that, as the old man at the table, years ago, that didn't happen as often. And I don't think people were as addressing the walkability that a lot of the residents now look at with the borough. And I think people take doing their sidewalks a lot more seriously than they did before. And at one point, I don't think the snow had stopped an hour, and the vast majority of my neighbors were out and had already done it. So I wanted to thank the residents as well. Then that takes care of my report for this evening. How do you like that one, Mr. President?
Sure. Any questions for Councilman Robinson?
I know you want to go home to basketball.
I know the mayor does. Mr. Mayor, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, Kevin, I saw an email that you sent to Bob Betty about the camera, so do you want to update where we are with that?
Sure. Bob is moving forward with the process. I had expected that the camera should be installed very, very shortly. He's aware that the timetable for Dining Under the Stars and the summer events, so it's really coordination with him and Higgins. He said, anytime that we're ready here, and I emphasize the desire to burn this as fast as possible. So he didn't give me the exact date, but I'll follow up with him and get your response. He and I have been exchanging a lot of communication.
Are there any other questions for?
Yes, I have a question for Kevin. Could you give us the status of the Sallyport project?
Right. So we have the plans for the Sallyport. They're not advertised just yet. There were a few changes to the bid specifications that we want to make. And then they also, similar to the road program, will be posted on PennBid so that we can get the bid prices for the Sallyport. So
Do you know when that'll occur?
I would really like to see it happen within the next 2 weeks.
So would I.
Are there any other questions? I'll only offer this observation, that if it is true that March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb, I'm hopeful that the roar of the lion will be replaced by the gentle bleating of a lamb soon.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Scott, the solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do not have anything to report this evening.
Are there any questions for our solicitor at this time? Hearing none, Mr. Mayor, your report, please.
Yes, let's see, the log for the police department, there were 657 complaints during the month of February. Traffic speed reports as well as copies of letters of commendation are attached. On March 9th, members of Media Upper Province and state police departments met with officials of the Rose Tree Media School District to include Superintendent James Wygo, principals for all RTM schools, as well as RTM staff members concerning the safety of all the schools in the district. So that was good. A couple of notes I wanted to bring up. You mentioned the outages, Kevin. I know last week, the second after the last storm, we had 904 down out of 3,700 homes, and that was just a week ago. Obviously, that's been straightened out somewhat, but a lot of ideas have come up that, Lisa, I think we should talk about public safety next week on what we should do for our neighbors. I'm not going to go through the list now, but it's something I think we should talk about next week. And I'm saying it now because I'll forget the evening tomorrow. Let's see, we also talked about Community Day, and that was in the newsletter, and that's May 5th. We also, I think, have talked about the participants being just about everybody, the police, fire, highway, maybe elected officials, committee members, various committees. I think Paula suggested that, just like July 4th and other events, try to get enough entertainment for the younger children, which I think we can do. And also entertainment for their parents and their grandparents. I was going to say entertainment for adults, but that could be perceived the wrong way. Restaurants have already volunteered to be involved, so we'll have restaurants here to serve. And I guess we're rain or shine in the community room, is that what we decided? And we're going to do it either way? Okay.
Maybe you decided, I don't think we decided yet.
Okay, well, all right. Let's see, Restaurant Week is coming up April 8th to 13th. We're brainstorming on publicity ideas to make Restaurant Week a success. Right now I know there are 7 restaurants participating, hopefully a few more will. Last Saturday night was the gala. I think it was one of the best they ever had. The theater gala. It raised over $100,000 on Saturday night. The lady that plays Patsy Cline was one of the performers. She was great. I stayed to the end.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And she started her Patsy Cline show at the theater tonight. So we're working on the theater and restaurants and the stores to work together, PR-wise, and that's what we're trying to do. So I think that there's going to be much more cohesion amongst those 3 groups. That's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor?
Mr. Mayor, just following up from the last 2 months with regards to New Year's Eve. I'm just trying to, have you found out yet who authorized the closing of parking spaces prior to the mass gathering permit application?
Yeah, I had discussions. I talked to you, and then after we talked, I had further discussions. I need to remember what they were, but it was a couple of the officers that were on that night were explaining what they wanted to do. I'll call you tomorrow.
Well, I
don't remember exactly what they were.
But who authorized it?
I don't remember. First of all, this is where we disagree. Officers can make decisions for public safety purposes if they see it, and for purposes that they feel where safety is part of it. And that was part of the answer. But I don't want to give it to you now because I don't remember exactly what the answer was.
And I don't want to harp on this, but I mean that the application was submitted months in advance, and all of a sudden, within minutes of that night, it determined
they shut it down earlier. Right?
There was an emergency. So no one figured out with the last 3 months of the application. This is the 18th year of the ball drop, and we just figured out that we needed to do something different. That's your answer.
Yeah, I think so.
You want to come up with a better one?
I'll come up with a better one tomorrow, Paul. That's my answer.
Okay, and you're sticking to it?
I'm sticking to it.
All right.
All right. Any other questions for the mayor? Hearing none, we'll move into the council committee reports. We have already done Councilman Robinson's portion of the report. We'll move to the NBA.
Just want to say one more thing. I do apologize. I did forget someone who had been instrumental. Higgins Electrical. They are a private firm, but do a lot of work for the borough, and I don't think Donnie and his crew slept for days. And we're just constantly taking care of things for us when we were having wires down. So I would be remorse if I didn't thank Donnie and the Higgins group for doing an outstanding job. So that concludes my report now.
Good catch.
And mine.
All right, so we have NBA Historic, Public Safety, and Civil Service. That's Councilwoman Lisa Johnson.
Thank you. The NBA wanted me to announce that there is a WXPM member event called the Media Americana Roots Ramble. This is our 16th annual event, which is happening on April 14th. It's a Saturday, from 6 p.m. to 1:15 a.m. Now, the tickets are, for the adults, are $15 that go through the day before, and then on the day of the event, they go up to $20. WXPM members get discounts. So buy your tickets early. It's rain or shine. And you can get more information on statestreetblues.com. or by calling 610-566-5039. So try to attend the musical event on April 14th if you can. Public Works and Media Historic Public Safety and Media Historic Society has not yet met for the month. And I have 3 mass gathering permits that need to either be ratified, amended, or approved. So the first one is to ratify the Media Farmers Market mass gathering permit, which is going to start on May 13th and go through November 18th on Sundays from 9 to 1, setting up at 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. They'll break down. So I make a motion to ratify.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
On the agenda it says 8 to 2, or is it 9 to 1?
The actual market is from 9 to 1, and the setup is 8 a.m. and breakdowns to 2 p.m.
So that would be what, that's important, that's what the application or permit's going to say.
What I just said?
You said 9 to 1.
It's 9 to 1 is the...
The permits are going to be issued from 8 to 2, correct, Mr. President?
Yes. And just for another point of clarification, the location of the market.
Oh, wait, that's going to be mine?
That's for you.
Don't take her thunder.
Okay, we won't take the thunder. I think we all know, so we'll have a big reveal in about
I'm just doing the administrative.
5 minutes.
She's
Okay.
doing the glory.
Fine, okay, sounds good.
All right.
Motion's been made and has been seconded and clarified. Unless there's any other questions, I'll call the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the mass gathering permit application for this year's Media's Farmers Market, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Yay. And I understand we have to amend the mass gathering permit that we already approved for the 2018 Media 5-mile race, which is to be held on Friday, June 15th, setting up at 5 p.m. and breaking down by 10:30 p.m. So I make a motion to amend. I believe it's because there wasn't a start time or a setup time, so a time was missing on the application.
Second.
Motion's been made and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the amended mass gathering permit for the 39th annual Media 5-mile race, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
This is a third mass gathering permit that I'd like to make a motion to approve for the Second Baptist Church's reenactment of Christ going to the cross. They want to do this on Friday, March 30th from 11:30 a.m. to noon.
Second.
Motion is made and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This really isn't a closure, right? This is like the moving.
It's a moving,
Right.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, moving.
All right, with that clarification, unless there are further questions, all those in favor of approving the mass gathering permit application for the Second Baptist Church, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Thank you. And the last item I have for tonight is a motion I'd like to make for our Civil Service Commission to advertise and test for 2 full-time police officers to be hired. This is part of the process, the long drawn-out process we need to do in order to hire police officers. And I'd like it to start now because 1, we're short a police officer already, and 2, we have an expected retirement in early June, late May. So we want the process to start now so we can get people lined up.
So your motion is to advertise and
Test potential police officers.
So it's to direct the Civil Service Commission to advertise and test for 2 positions. I think that's the motion. So that's the motion. Mr. Scott, are we clear on the verbiage here? I don't want to misstate what the motion ought to say.
I'm fine with the motion. I would just point out, it does not obligate you to hire 2. I mean, you're going to make an offer. I don't want to hold out this sense that you're guaranteeing 2 positions if you find out you don't have candidates you're happy with or whatnot. But it's fine to go ahead and test, indicating that you're intending to hire 2.
Or hire any of them at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott, then is it true that if at our sole discretion, we decide to hire one, two, or none, that's completely at our discretion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just, just having the test done doesn't obligate us.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Councilwoman Johnson. Is it?
Why don't we see, we have a second on the motion
Second.
first.
Oh,
We
sorry.
do have a second on the motion. Okay, fair enough. Councilman Williamson?
Just a question for you, Lisa. Are you intending to do this in the typical older process where it's wide open, anybody can come and test? Or did you want to do it under that provision that we recently adopted?
I think that's a decision that we have to make as a council.
I think you're going to do that before you take your
I
test.
think, yeah, because if you're opening it up for testing, then who is the pool you're opening up to? That's my point to you.
Okay, but I think we have to decide that as a council.
I think it has to be included in your motion, I think.
Well, they can't really move forward with testing until you tell them which, they're either going to advertise wide, or they're going to notify internal candidates and former officers of their right to test.
So you're saying that her motion can stand as is without making that decision
Well-
right now?
Well, my point is that the motion doesn't do much until you make that decision. They're going to have to go in one of two directions. You need to tell them which direction to go in.
Okay.
So, I mean, they can start assembling testing materials on this motion, but I don't think that they can place an ad or notify prospective candidates until you've decided which method to pursue.
And a question I have is, procedurally, is
Good point.
why don't we have this on the agenda?
Well, that was a different point.
But I was,
Yeah, but while we're talking procedure, I'd just point out, the Civil Service Commission has not yet, Civil Service Commission has not yet adopted those regulations.
Okay.
It's been approved by council, but not by the commission.
Okay.
I don't have any reason to think they will not, but it has not happened.
but this is where,
So we're at a motion that has been seconded, and we had several questions. I believe that Councilman Robinson wishes to ask another question.
I just wanted to further, I'm somewhat confused on why something of this significance didn't make our agenda. And I think that, that we talk about transparency. Here's something that is a long-term decision. It's not like, hey, we have to get a mass gathering permit for somebody who's doing something tomorrow. This is something that will affect the borough for decades. And I just question the fact that, that we talk about it and then it just disappears and then it's brought up, So as I referenced to Councilwoman Johnson earlier this evening, is a resident would have no ability to know if this was going to be on our agenda tonight or not. And they would not be able to come to discuss or provide their input if a resident so desired, because it's not on our agenda. And I think that we should table this to at least next month.
I understand your point, and I was going to suggest that procedurally, motion to table would be the vehicle to get you where it is that you wish to go. So a motion to table has been made. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
It has been seconded. That motion takes priority over the motion that was initially made. So we have a motion to table, and it has been seconded. Unless there are any questions concerning that motion to table, I will call the question. All those in favor of tabling the motion, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. The motion passes 4-3. So that item.
I don't think you asked, I don't think you vote, I don't think you can do that, Mr. President. I think you need to call who said, who says no, who says yes to, you didn't say who said no.
Oh, that's true. Okay. So all those opposed, please say nay.
No.
No.
All right.
Did you say something, Sarah?
I didn't, but I now say no.
So.
Hint, hint.
I think she didn't say anything.
Well, that's not, all right.
The motion to table succeeds on a 4-3 vote.
Can you call the question? I wasn't sure who the was.
If somebody wishes to poll council, they may ask for me to poll the council. Mr. Mayor, would you like me to do so?
Am I allowed to?
No.
I don't
Am I
know.
allowed to ask?
Mr. Scott?
I think the minutes need to show who voted how, so.
Sure.
In my, We don't always go through the process of a roll call vote, but in my opinion, every vote is a roll call vote, meaning it needs to be in the minutes as to how everybody votes.
All right, fair enough. We will go down the row. The motion was to table the motion that was made by Councilwoman Lisa Johnson. And Mr. Robinson, your vote was?
To table.
Councilwoman Lisa Johnson?
No.
Councilwoman Amy Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Boyer?
Yes, to table.
And Councilman Williamson?
No.
And Councilwoman Dixon?
No.
All right, and I voted in favor of tabling. So the motion to table succeeds by a 4-3 margin.
I'm finished.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Councilwoman Lisa Johnson?
So Lisa, would you put this on, sorry, would you put this on the agenda for
April.
April? Thank you.
Jeff, will you put it on the agenda for April?
All right, we'll move along then to Fair Trade Farmers Market, Shade Tree, and the Environmental Advisory Councilwoman Amy Johnson.
Thank you. So yes, I'm mainly focusing on the farmers market this evening. We are excited to announce that we have a start date, a new day, and a new location. So the farmers market will begin on Mother's Day, which is a Sunday, May 13th. It will run from 9 to 1 every Sunday all the way through November, most likely. And the new location will be on Edgemont Street between State and Front. I'm sorry, yes, State and Front. Right where between the ball field, Borough Field, and the school playground. So the street will actually be closed and a safe place for young people and families to enjoy a Sunday morning. So we had a very exciting meeting last night with Farm to City, who has gathered many wonderful vendors so far. Some of them are still being worked upon, but vendors and producers and products to look forward to are, of course, several vegetable vendors. We have a fruit and orchard vendor, flowers, honey, lots of different meats and poultry, eggs and dairy. There'll be coffee, baked goods, including a gluten-free baked good vendor, locally sourced ice cream, waffles,
Get me hungry.
olives, possibly salmon, and then of course there's a really neat vendor called Neil Sharpening Service that comes once a month, where you can bring your gardening tools, your kitchen knives, and get them sharpened. So that's a really fun addition. So that is the news for the market. I would like to read something that Addie Gianella, who is the chair of the market, would like me to read to council. So I'm going to read this from an email. Dear council members, on behalf of the Media Farmers Market Committee, I would like to express our thanks for your belief in the market, its significance to media, and your financial support. Taking the 2017 season hiatus has proven to be truly beneficial. Partnering with Farm to City to operate the business management of the market will allow the market manager and committee to focus on strategic development, promotion, and partnerships. Farm to City has received commitments from some dynamic farmers and food artisans. Their participation will help to distinguish the Media Farmers Market. So too will having the market on Sundays and in a larger, more easily accessible location. We hired Jennifer Camp to be the Media Farmers Market Manager. Jennifer is smart, articulate, creative, and personable individual. She is also a well-respected member of media. She will be a dynamic market manager. I am honored to be a part of this dedicated, hardworking group of people. Again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at the market, Addie. So that was from Addie, and from Unless anyone has any questions for me, that concludes my
I
report.
have just one
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Did you say honey?
Yes.
I have one
did.
question and one comment.
Yeah,
You said salmon,
I did.
locally grown,
It's,
Ridley Creek?
you know, it's funny, I mean, there are a lot of rules and regulations with farm to city around local, but there are some exceptions.
Okay, right, I'm just,
And we're not sure about the salmon yet, but that's a possibility.
you got rainbow trout. That's all.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Vice President Johnson, I wasn't going to bring this up, but Addie's little note just kind of made me change on it. Financially, I mean, this borough has supported the farmer's market in the tune of, between this year and prior years, close to $30,000. Do you feel that with the contribution of $15,000 this year, that the farmer's market should and will be self-sufficient in the future?
In the future, yeah.
Meaning after the 2018 year?
I think that is the goal, Paul. I think that is the goal. I mean, the more vendors, the more shoppers we get, the more sustainable that it can be. So that is the goal.
I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but it's a fair amount of taxpayer dollars that we've put forth to support this. I'm excited about it. I do think this location will be better than the last one. But at some point, one has to stand on their own 2 feet.
I look forward to seeing you at the market, Paul.
I'll be there, getting that salmon.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move to my portion of the agenda, Community Development, Historic Architecture Review Board, and Media Arts Council. I have one item for legislative action. It's a fairly straightforward one. This is authorizing us to apply for a grant for purposes of construction of the Veterans Square Garden. I think it was last month that we voted in favor of going out to bid on the Veterans Square Garden, which will be sort of an urban green area that will be at Veterans Square and State Street, alongside of the substation that's there across the street from the PNC Bank. It's always good if we have some outside money to help us with these types of projects. So I make a motion today to approve Resolution 2018-23, which will authorize us to apply for a PICO Green Region Open Space Program grant.
Second.
Motion's been made. Is there a second on the motion?
There is.
Oh, yes, sorry.
He jumped in.
Was there any discussion on the motion is what I wanted to say. Okay, so I'll call the motion. All those in favor of Resolution 2018-23 to authorize the application to the 2017 PICO Green Region Open Space Program Grant, please say aye.
Aye. Actually, I think I better recuse myself from this vote. If you make a note, my organization administers the PICO Green Region program, even though I don't have any vote on the final thing. Just in the abundance of caution, I better not vote.
Were there any names?
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
All right, that's the only item I have for legislative action tonight. I do have a couple of announcements. The first is a repeat announcement. I know that I'm excited about this. I'm sure that many people are also excited about this. In just a couple of weeks' time, we'll have the 11th Annual Media Film Festival. The dates are April 5th through April 7th, so it's 3 days this year, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It will be held, as it has been held for the past 2 years, I believe it's 2 years, at the Media Theater. You may purchase tickets at the box office, or you can go online at the Media Arts Council website and purchase tickets there. This is an event that has grown in popularity tremendously over the years, so if you're all interested in going, it's a good idea to purchase your tickets in advance. Otherwise, you might find that there isn't a seat for you. So please check that out.
And there's different films playing on different days. It's not the same film.
Yes, there are different films, different days. There is a number of horror films that are playing late in the evening. I think it's on Friday. So please check out the film festival website just to make sure that you're purchasing tickets for the date that you think is of most interest for you. There are other events as well in addition to the movies themselves. Just check it out. It's a great event, and it gets better every year. The second item is something that was circulated by our manager just today. It turns out that media was ranked by an organization called Smart Asset, and I'm not going to say another word further because Councilman Dixon, you see how this builds. I know that everyone's appetite is whetted. Sarah, you'll be able to take it away soon. So, with that not nearly said, I've got nothing else.
Okay, any questions for the President?
Yeah, we're going to have to meet in advance from now on so we don't step on each other's.
That's all right, we can repeat it twice. It's that good.
It is really good. So, Sarah, you say it twice. All right, so we'll move along to Recreation and Board of Health. Councilman Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. A few announcements. Registration is now open for summer camp. You can register through Media Youth Center's website. Go to the My Camp section. Camp will begin, I believe it's the week of June 24th. That's assuming school gets out on the 21st, which all the kids are hoping it does with all the snow days. But I think tentatively begins the 24th of June. It will run for 7 weeks. Now there is a break the week of July 23rd. There is a basketball camp, and campers can register for that separately or else take the week off. And camp runs from 9 until 3. There is an option for 3 to 5. There's an additional charge for that. Some previous events, the recent family dance that was on March the 3rd was a big success. Having it on a Saturday night, I believe, was a big help, and more people came out, so that was really well supported, and thanks to REC for all their hard work for doing that. REC sold all of their flower show tickets this year. That was $125. They were sold at $20 a piece, so stay tuned for next year, and that is always a big success as well. The annual Easter egg hunt / lunch with the Easter Bunny will be held Saturday, March 31st. The hunt will last from 11 until approximately 11:05 when the thousands of eggs are all picked out, and then roughly 11:30 or so to 1:30 is lunch with the Easter Bunny, and that is always a big successful event.
What kind of meal do they have with the Easter Bunny?
What kind of meal? Carrots.
Carrots.
Well, actually, hot dogs. The Easter Bunny doesn't eat it, it's just
okay.
Easter Bunny stands there and takes pictures. So the Easter Bunny does not eat the hot dogs.
Hot dogs?
We've always sold hot dogs. Well, not sold it, but delivered. And they've gone up. It used to be we went through about 200, now I think they're up to about 400.
Wow.
So it's a very well attended event, and as I said, thousands of eggs that all get snatched up really quickly. So hopefully we'll have nice weather, and it's always a big success. In the future, the cycling event, the first annual Media Hometown Cycling Classic is still tentatively going to be held June the 30th. The cycling committee will be putting out notifications to residents, and it is now on the 2018 PCA, I believe that means Pennsylvania Cycling Association race calendar, so it is a legitimate event, and stay tuned for more events related to that. And then finally, on a sad note, Sean St. who's a longtime member of Rec Commission, recently lost his son, and I would like to send my condolences on behalf of Council to Sean and his family and let him know that our thoughts are with him. And that's my report.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Councilman Boyer? We'll move along then to Finance and Library. Councilman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. As usual, I'll start my report with a request for ratification of the payment of bills from February. Drawn from the general fund, $359,978.86. From the recreation fund, $2,878.44. From the capital fund, $10,364.35. I move ratification for those bills.
Second.
Motion's been made and it has been seconded. Is there any question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of payment of the borough's bills for the month of February 2018 as outlined by Councilman Williamson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
For the rest of my remarks, they're all just comments, no action. For the budget for 2018, we're off to a good start. We're ahead of schedule for our revenues and behind for our expenses, so that's always a good thing, and we certainly hope that that will continue through the rest of the year. We have now concluded that for 2017, we've essentially closed the books, and we will end up with a roughly $400,000 surplus, despite what I may have said last month. It actually ends up to be about $400,000. The Finance Committee met a couple days ago, and we are going to recommend that we put that money into the Capital Reserve Fund. As you may recall, this year's budget includes a $1.8 million line item drawn from the Capital Reserve to finance our capital projects for the year. So this essentially will reduce that to $1.4 million should we do all those projects that we anticipate and get no further grant money to do them. So I guess I should make that in the form, I'd like to make that in the form of a motion, that we move the full surplus funds from 2017 into the Capital Reserve Fund.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving transfer of the borough surplus from the year 2017 into the capital fund, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And one last thing on the budget. Each year, for the past 2 years, we've had a capital improvement plan task force. It's a group of borough citizens that help the borough staff update and make complete the list of capital improvements we'd like to do in the borough and put them on a prioritized schedule. That task force will meet again for the first time this year at the end of the month on the 28th at 6 p.m. Now, turning to a few other matters. First, the library. If you don't know already, the library has really landed a coup in that they have obtained the guest speaker services of Mark Bowden. You may know him as the author, most famously perhaps, of Black Hawk Down. But he's a Chester County resident, he's a local fellow, very nice man. But he's going to come to the Media Theater on the 4th of April at 7 p.m. to discuss his newest book, which is about Hue and the battle thereof during the Vietnam War. It should prove to be a very interesting evening, and you can obtain tickets by simply going to the Media Upper Providence Library website. And they're inexpensive, I must say, having obtained several already for myself. Last thing is the 5th Street Park Steering Committee has been meeting regularly, and they have a public hearing scheduled for the beginning of April 2nd at 7 p.m. here at the Borough Complex, in which they will, accompanied by the landscape architect that's been helping them, show the public the final design that they have derived to underpin our grant request to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is due in the middle of the month. We needed a final design so they could price, the landscape architect Tom Fine could price it for the grant. So that's going to be on the 2nd. I hope you can all come. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions or comments for Councilman Williamson?
Peter, excess revenue each year has been in that camp of 4,000 to a little bit more, a little bit less.
Yes.
Are we going to be looking at that 4,000 as like a number that we will start to use as our capital for the next year or so? Because I know that we saved and socked a lot away. You're saying now we have like 1.8 we want to go through in a calendar year. You can't keep going through 1.8 if we're only generating 400K at the end of each year. So I mean, is this something that the capital group recognizes that we need to start looking at projects for the next year of 4,000, or are you looking at like putting portions of it away so that you can put, if you're doing $1 million project, it might take 10 years to get to it, put 100,000 years, something like that?
That's a very good question, Paul. And I would say it's sort of a mixed bag. For instance, for the many years now, we've been putting away a certain amount every year for a piece of very expensive fire equipment. I think it's going to cost us about $800,000. We've got about 570-some thousand saved now toward it. That's an example of that style. But I think that given the amount of money that we actually took from savings this year, or anticipate so, it's a very fair question for that task force this year as to whether they want to, depending on the conclusions of the plan, how we're going to finance it. I mean, essentially what we've done is this year is we're going to take it all from savings. Next year, are we going to limit ourselves to only that which we can fund through a surplus, or are we going to consider some sort of surplus as the basis for borrowing? I can't tell you right now, but it's something that we're going to have to determine this year. And of course, council will be brought into the process to the extent when we know.
Because one of the reasons I just brought up, because I mean, as discussed and emails went around today from the police department, this facility is getting old.
Yes, it is.
And we do need to take a look at some significant, and so I sat there and was like, do we move 400,000 to a capitals project group, or do we sit there and say, we need to do X dollars and use it now versus put it in, having it be the process of another year or two? I'm not sure. These are things that, it seems that we've been having an excess. So in most government finance, if you're continuously having an excess, you either need to reduce your revenues or increase your expenses. So I think we may be things that we've been holding back on to be conservative and thrifty. We may need to take another look at that, and they may need to go into annual operating expenses versus moving it over to a capital fund that it may just disappear or go into.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. You might say that we had in some ways it's technical too, because you could say we had a $400,000 surplus, but in the end, really what we have is we're not spending $1.8 million this year, that savings we're spending $1.4 million. So, it can go back and forth. And I think that this year we do have some money for this complex in the budget, but maybe we didn't put enough in. And next year is the year where we spend a lot on it, or we decide to spend a lot on it, and then we have to figure out how to pay for it.
And again, I agree with you on that. It's just one of these things that we have been a very thrifty community for a long time. Our codes department's driving around in a 20-year-old used police car. Our highway department is driving around with some of the trucks from 1985. As long as they run and work, they said they love them. But they're the things that we may need to take a more serious look at, because if we're able to sock 400 away, maybe we're spending that on, I'm going to say, on some of the fluffy stuff, when we need to back it off and start to spend it on some of the more vital things, such as updating the Borough Hall.
And that reminds me of something for the rest of the council too. All of you are liaisons to committees, or you run committees for which there are expenses. And it really behooves you to make sure that the Capital Improvement Task Force knows what those expenses are, so we get a fair picture of what we need to spend our money on. And really, it's sort of, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
So the better data we have, the better the plan will be. So I'm glad you brought that up, Paul.
Are there any other questions or comments? I have what I believe to be a related comment. Alert readers of our local newspaper, or at least the Philadelphia newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, would have noticed in the lower left-hand corner of the first page of Section A, a little bit over a week ago, an article about municipal taxes. Reporters at the Philadelphia Inquirer looked at the towns surrounding Philadelphia to see what tax rates have been doing over the past 10 years. They found that on average, property taxes in the communities surrounding Philadelphia over the past 10 years have increased 28%. 28%. So I sharpened my pencil and I tried to figure out what change there's been over the past 10 years in media for its property taxes. And I did the arithmetic, and Councilman Williamson, you probably know the answer as well as I.
I think it's a goose egg.
It is zero. It's an interesting article, not only for that information, but also media is to some extent profiled in the article as an exception to the rule. So a lot of commendation needs to go to the borough staff, the borough manager, as well as to our finance committee for making sure that our finances have been sound over the past 10 years. And I think that's been reflected in the level property taxation rate here in the borough. So kudos to them. On that, Personnel, Public Relations, and Historical Archives, in the end is the beginning. We began this evening with a presentation by the Media Police Department, and we are ending with a motion concerning the Police Department.
I was going to move back to near the bottom, but okay, let's go with the agenda here. The collective bargaining agreement with the media police. I don't know, Jeff, I'd like for you to give a little.
Sure.
Yes.
Yep, be happy to. So the Personnel Committee, in conjunction with Borough Council, negotiated with the Media Police Department, and essentially the parties agreed on the memorandum of understanding. So essentially the contract is, the duration is 5 years. The wages on average are 3.4% over those 5 years. There's a couple other things that were looked at. There's an opt-out provision, so in other words, it was increased. So anyone that's not utilizing the borough plan, which most do, would be eligible to receive a portion in the form of an opt-out. For those current employees, they're eligible for a 3-year drop or deferred retirement option program. Essentially, they can declare themselves as retired, but then still work for a period of time to allow council to hire, develop a succession plan, hire officers. So that went from a 3 to a 5-year. That only applies to current employees. It does not apply to anyone that would be hired after 1/1/18. The next one has not been ironed out, but it's with regard to what's called a heart and lung policy. So if you're injured in the line of duty, the parties agreed to look at developing a policy for that, so that'll be forthcoming, working with the Personnel Committee and the Borough's Labor Council. A light duty policy, so anyone that is injured in a non-work related capacity, there's some language that the parties agreed to with regard to that. And then last but not least, with regard to the Affordable Care Act, there's something that's called a Cadillac tax, which generally keeps moving. It's kind of a moving target. So right now, it's applicable in 2022, so it gives Borough Council the option to open up the contract, discuss that so that you're not penalized. Remains to be seen whether or not that will be in play, but in any event, with a 5-year contract, the last year, 2022, would be applicable, so Borough Council wanted to make sure that the taxpayers were safeguarded, so that's something that can be looked at and discussed in 2021 if it applies at a later date. That's essentially just a quick overview, so that the consolidated contract goes back, probably 50 years of all the memorandum of understandings or the negotiations that have taken place. So essentially, the consolidated contract is a compilation of all of those agreements previously. So that's what's in front of you.
So my motion is for the approval of the memorandum of understanding consolidated contract. Is that correct?
That sounds great.
All right.
Second. There is a motion, and there has been seconded. Is there any discussion or questions about the motion?
Just like to thank the Personnel Committee for all the hard work they put in to negotiate this, and the Borough Manager. I know it was it took a lot of effort, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consolidated bargaining agreement with the Media Police as outlined by Councilman Dixon and the Borough Manager, Mr. Smith, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And the Personnel Committee had the opportunity to meet with a candidate who stood out from the other 21 applicants, passed all the interviews and reference checks, and is deemed most suited for the position of part-time code enforcement administrative assistant. Therefore, I move to extend an offer to Holly Speckles for this position.
Second.
Motion's been made and has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I think another good plus here is she is also a resident of the Borough media.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's true.
Which is a big plus.
Right.
It could be a negative for her because she lives so close that.
Well, she's right down the block. As soon as we take the vote, she's over here by 9:30.
However.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of extending an offer of part-time employment to Holly Speckles for the position of part-time administrative assistant for the Code Enforcement Department, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay.
Nay. Oh, aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes unanimously.
Also, with when it comes to the PR, Dan Levins with Headroom was awarded Entrepreneur of the Year by Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. And I think when we pass Dan, we need to pat him on the back and say, great job and keep up the good work, because that's some positive about a local media business. And, let him know that we appreciate this. And a new study from Smart Asset, which is what Brian was talking about earlier, ranked media the best place to retire in Pennsylvania. And
Don't tell my wife that.
The best place. And so they did their little study talking about taxes, doctor offices, recreation centers, retirement centers, and things like that. And it is the best place. Really, ranked number one.
Not even close.
And so I think we should be proud of that. And let's see.
We should be.
Yes, and we are proud. The Historic Archives are, oh wow, they're doing so much. We'll have its website up and running real soon. It could be really up and running right now for them. And they'll have the Appleton collection available on that. Display case in the library. And the thing that is most exciting is April 26th. I want you to write it down because we really would like to have the council present. April 26th, they're hosting an open house right there at the library with refreshments and slide presentations and the whole welcome. So the council, please put April 26th on your calendar. You'll get more information as to time and all. But it will be right there at the library, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Councilwoman Dixon?
I noted that one of the things that went into that retirement index was walkability, which I think, and I commend us, for having a walkable town. I think that all the stuff that you can do downtown is certainly part of that.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Before we have our bookend public comment and privilege of the floor, there's something that I should have mentioned that I didn't, and I apologize for that. Well, recently, within the past half year or so, there's been work done on Manchester Avenue across the street from the Tiny Teas on a new borough park, and it's come along quite nicely. So nicely, in fact, that a local service organization, the Rotary Club, is interested in putting some money as well as some elbow grease into the project. They are proposing, without any obligation to the borough, to put in $15,000 worth of amenities, benches, plantings, etc. And also essentially to adopt, although that's not a legal term, the park, which means that twice a year they will go out and have events and they'll clean up, make sure that branches are removed and any trash that didn't quite make it to the wastebasket or the recycling receptacle, because that's the only reason why the trash would not be in either of the receptacles, that it just didn't make its way. They'll clean that up. There's a little bit of time urgency associated with this because the Rotary Club would like to spend $5,000 now towards purchase of some benches and other amenities. Now, I'd like to suggest, I believe in speaking with the solicitor that we don't need to take action on this, but I think it's a good idea, and if council agrees that it is a good idea, that any amenities that are being proposed to be purchased be first run past Peter Williamson and Amy Johnson, because they worked on the design for that park. And also we make sure that we get the check for $5,000 before we begin purchasing any of these amenities. So if everyone agrees to that, I'd say that we leave it to Peter and to Amy to make sure that what's being proposed is fitting to the plan, and that once we receive the check, that we go forward with purchase of those items.
So now I want to make sure I'm clear. You're saying it's okay for the Rotary to get involved as long as they confer with Peter and Amy and show us the money?
Show us the money and make sure that, I think the benches that they're looking at are similar to the ones we have in Hoopman Park, but who knows? We just want to make sure that what they're proposing fits in with the plan. It just gives us a chance to put eyes on it and make sure that in the end, the project that we've been anticipating will come to be.
Okay.
Mr. Scott, do you think that a motion's required, or is recommended?
You know, as we're speaking, I'm looking at PennDOT adopt the highway requirements, just as kind of use it as a guidepost. And the requirements are that you have to commit to doing it twice a year for a 2-year period in order for PennDOT to put up signs recognizing your organization. So I think we ought to have just a letter agreement or something with Rotary saying, you can put your signs up, we expect you to do this twice a year, and they can remain indefinitely as long as that happens. Something to that effect.
With that in mind, do you think that it's advisable to do this by motion?
Yeah, you can make a motion to...
Did you include a sign in your discussion?
There was some discussion of signage.
Yeah.
The Rotary indicated that they desire to have some type of signage there to indicate that they are putting elbow grease and money into the project. But they signal that they are flexible as to what that signage is.
And is that do you consider that us approving some sort of signage, or do they think that's a condition of their first $5,000?
No.
Okay, then I would let's handle that. I'd rather not count further. I mean, they're ready to give us $5,000 for stuff that we could buy. It just so happens that 3 benches and trash cans and a trash can adds up to about $5,000.
Yes.
And that's stuff that we would like to have in that park. And the weather's getting warm. It'd be nice to have them in there so people can start using it. As Councilman Johnson has observed, a lot of people go through there on their way to and from Wawa. So it'd be nice to have someplace to sit.
So I can make a motion that is conditioned upon overview by Councilman Williamson and Councilwoman Amy Johnson, as well as review by our solicitor for any letter or memorandum that he thinks is appropriate to memorialize the arrangement. And I make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that. I would encourage, I think maybe instead of getting us formal, like looking at the PennDOT adopt the highway, either Brian, yourself, or our solicitor Bob Scott touch base with Rotary. You know, they've been outstanding partners with Media Little League and places like that. Find out what they historically do when they partner up with another nonprofit or governmental entity. You know, I wouldn't want to have us sit there and say, well, if you're going to give us $5,000, we're also going to require that you come twice a year and clean up the place. I think you tried. I mean, I'm sure they have something that they have done. They've been around a long time. I'm sure they have the requirements of their members, and I think we could just follow what they do on an annual basis.
I think that would be.
And I think that when talking signage, I think we could have the Rotary logo, but if we can't come up with the name of the park, maybe it becomes Rotary Park. If we can come up with a name, it's Rotary sign and the name of the park someplace. But Rotary Park's kind of rolls off your tongue.
Rotary does roll. All right, so.
Oh, sorry. So.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, I don't need to read. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, I apologize for not presenting that during my portion of the agenda. So we now have public comment privilege of the floor. If there's anybody who wishes to address council at this time, please come forward, let us know what's on your mind. There not being any takers at this time, motion to adjourn. It's been made. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Good night, folks.